The house woke up when the garage door rumbled open, lights rising in a soft glow over the long marble island and the 2 plates of salmon that had cooled an hour earlier. Derek sat at the table with his fork resting on the rim, staring at the food the way you stare at a picture from a life that used to be yours. He heard Jade before he saw her. The quick tap of her heels, the rustle of silk, the fast edge in her voice that meant she was already in a meeting. She came into the kitchen with her phone pressed to her ear, tote sliding off her shoulder, eyes on the open laptop instead of on him. "No, Mark, if they want a discount they can look for another unicorn," she said, dropping the tote on the counter. "I am not shaving my valuation to make some old man comfortable." Derek watched her breeze past the table. She did not seem to notice the candles. He had blown out 10 minutes earlier, or the way the salmon had gone dull. He took a breath that felt heavier than it should have. "Dinner's ready," he said, loud enough to cut through her call. She glanced over, gave him a quick public relations smile, mouthed 10 minutes, and turned back to the laptop. He had heard that promise too many times to believe it. 10 minutes meant she forgot he was there. He waited another stretch, the house filling with her half of conversations about roadshows and lockups, when the silence between his heartbeat and her voice grew too big. He set his fork down. "Jade," he said, steady. "Hang up a minute, please." She sighed into the phone, the dramatic exhale she used when someone interrupted her. "Mark, I'll call you back," she said, and tapped the screen. The sudden quiet felt strange, like the sound had been cut out of a movie. She twisted the cap off a bottle of sparkling water, fizz loud in the stillness. "You good?" she asked, already half-turned toward her laptop again. "I'm not," he said, surprising himself with how calm it came out. "We only talk about your company now. I'm starting to feel like background decoration in my own house." She rolled the bottle between her palms. "It's a season," she said. "We're closing this back. This is how it looks when you're building something massive. You know that." He shook his head. "I knew what it looked like when we were in busted-up houses, sweating and hoping the pipes wouldn't explode," he replied. "Back when you needed my crews and my savings. I shut down my whole business because you said, 'Give me 5 years and we both eat forever.' Now it feels like you think I should be grateful to stand next to you in photos." Her eyes sharpened. "So we're doing this tonight," she said. The poor me speech. "I'm not poor," he said. "I just want to know if you still see me as your partner." She laughed once, short and humorless. "You ran some crews, knocked down some walls," she said. "I sat in rooms where they didn't want to fund a black woman at all. I built the platform, the brand, the tech. Investors didn't wire money because they met your drywall guy." His jaw tightened, but he did not look away. "I'm not trying to steal your shine," he said. "I'm trying to remember when I stopped mattering." She straightened, shoulders squaring, that hard CEO mask dropping over her face. "You want the truth?" she said. "You needed out of breaking your back on job sites. You needed stability. I gave you this life. This house, these cars, that bank account. You are a good man, Derek. And you were helpful at the start. And you look great in pictures. But if you walked away tomorrow, my world doesn't fall apart." His stomach turned cold. "So what am I?" he asked softly. She met his eyes, voice flat. "You are replaceable," she said. "I went to lawyers to make sure of that. I am not losing what I built because my husband gets in his feelings." The words landed like a door slamming. Above the stove, the tiny camera recessed under the cabinet watched them, its red light glowing steady. The smart home system recorded everything, as always. Derek's eyes flicked to it for a heartbeat, then back to her. He could feel heat rising in his chest, the urge to shout, to sweep plates off the table, to make her hurt the way she had just made him hurt. Instead, he drew in a long breath, let it smooth the anger into something cold and clear. "Got it," he said, voice calm in a way that made her blink. "Thank you for being honest." He stood, the stool scraping the tile, carried his untouched plate to the sink, rinsed it with slow, precise movements. She watched him, a faint crease forming between her brows, as if she was suddenly unsure she liked this version of him. "Where are you going?" she asked. He hung the dish towel back on its hook. "I've got some things to handle," he said. "You've got your 8 a.m. He gave her a small nod that held no promise and walked out, footsteps fading down the hall. In the empty kitchen, the camera's red light kept burning, quietly holding the sentence that would cost her more than she could imagine. "You are replaceable." It was all there on video now, and he knew it. That was the moment the revenge began. Derek did not try to sleep. He lay on the guest room bed fully dressed, staring at the ceiling while the words she had thrown at him replayed in his head, not as sound now but as plain hard text. You are replaceable. Lawyers made sure. Around 3 in the morning the walls felt too close. He got up, slipped on his sneakers, and walked back down the hallway. The house lights rose in a low glow as the motion sensors caught him, turning the big kitchen into a quiet stage. The plates were gone, the counters wiped clean, but the insult still hung in the air like smoke. Above the stove, the small black eye of the camera watched the room, its red recording light steady. He moved to the control tablet by the pantry, wiped his damp palms on his sweats, and woke the screen. The home security app opened with a familiar grid of feeds. He tapped the kitchen camera, scrolled back through the timeline until he saw himself sitting at the table, Jade sweeping into the frame, phone to her ear. He pressed play. From this angle, he looked smaller than he felt. Shoulders rounded, hands quiet on the table. He watched her wave him off, watched himself ask her to hang up, watched the argument build in miniature. When her digital self leaned forward and said, clear and smooth, you are replaceable. I made sure of that when I sat with lawyers and protected what I built. He felt the same punch to the chest he had felt in real time. The audio system was good. Every word landed crisp. He paused the video with her mouth still slightly open on the last syllable. For a few seconds he just looked at the frozen image, at his own profile in the corner, at the distance between them. Then he tapped the export icon. He sent the clip to his private cloud, watching the little progress circle crawl around, then dug a slim silver flash drive from the junk drawer, plugged it into the side of the screen, and made a second copy. When the bar hit 100%, he ejected the drive and held it in his hand for a moment. This was not a plate he could throw or a door he could slam. This was sharper. He slipped the drive into his pocket, feeling the small hard shape against his thigh like a promise, and walked to the room they called the office. The desk lamp threw a tight cone of light over a stack of unopened mail and a closed black folder in the bottom drawer. The prenup. He pulled it out, laid it on the desk, and opened it. His name and hers sat side by side at the top of the first page. Paragraphs of dense language marched underneath, full of phrases he had skimmed past in Vegas because she had taken his face in her hands and said, "It's just paperwork so investors feel safe. I would never use this against you." He read now until the words blurred. The parts about waiving rights, about fixed payouts, about separate property. On paper it said, if this ends, Jade keeps almost everything. In his chest something twisted, then shifted into a harder shape. He closed the folder and picked up his phone. A search bar blinked at him. He typed slowly, making each letter count. Atlanta divorce lawyer, high net worth spouse gave up career. A list of firms and faces filled the screen. He scrolled until one photo made him stop. A black woman in her 40s with a level gaze, the caption under her name reading, "Protecting the partners behind the spotlight." He opened her site. She had articles about entertainers' spouses, stay-at-home dads, men and women who signed prenups they did not understand and then spent years pretending they were fine. At the bottom of the page, a simple line, "Free initial consultation. Bring your documents. Bring your truth." He saved the number, stared at it for a moment, then hit call. A receptionist answered, professional and calm. He gave his name, answered a few quiet questions, listened as she found a space that afternoon when a client had canceled. "If you have a prenuptial agreement, bring it," she said. "Any proof of financial contributions, too. We can build from there." When he hung up, the room felt different. Not lighter, but sharper. Like the edges had come into focus. He pulled an old overnight bag from the closet and started filling it. Not with clothes, but with evidence. Bank statements from a file box in the closet. A thumb drive with photos of those first ruined houses. Printed invoices from his old contracting company to Jade's early LLC. Texts, screenshotted from his phone where she had written years ago, "Couldn't have done this flip without you. You're the backbone of this whole thing." Every page he slid into the bag cooled him further. The hurt was still there, but it no longer ran wild. It had a direction now. By the time dawn seeped through the blinds, the bag sat zipped by the door, heavy with paper and plastic and history. Jade's alarm chimed upstairs, followed by the thud of her steps, the rush of the shower, the fast hum of her getting ready for the day that would make her a public billionaire. Derek moved through the kitchen like any other morning. brewing coffee, slicing fruit, answering her distracted morning with one of his own. She had no idea that the little red light above the stove had stopped being a gadget and become a weapon. As she walked out the door, lips grazing his cheek, perfume trailing behind her, she thought he was still exactly where she wanted him. Quiet, comfortable, safely penned in by a prenup she believed was iron. He watched the door close, then picked up the bag and his keys. He was done arguing. From here on, the revenge would be written in legal filings and bank transfers, not raised voices, and every move would start with that one sentence caught on camera: "You are replaceable." He intended to show her exactly how much it cost to say it. The law office sat halfway up a glass tower downtown, high enough to see the freeway. Shimmer in the heat, but still close, enough to hear sirens echo between the buildings. Derek parked in a public garage instead of using the reserved spots near the elevators, shoulder tense as he rode up with people in suits who smelled like cologne and stress. The reception area was quiet, cool air humming through hidden vents. A black woman with short locks looked up from her screen and gave him a small nod that felt more like respect than politeness. "You must be Mr. Cole," she said. "Miss Holt will be right with you. Fill these out while you wait." He sat on a soft gray chair and worked through the forms. Length of marriage. No kids, assets he knew, debts he guessed. When he reached the line that asked why he was seeking counsel, he stared at the blank space for a long breath, then wrote in slow, dark letters, "She says I'm replaceable and her lawyers made sure. I want to see if that's true." The inner door opened. A woman in a navy dress, mid-40s, calm eyes, stepped out with a folder in hand. "Mr. Cole?" she asked. He stood. "I'm Kendra," she said, shaking his hand with a firm grip. "Come on back." Her office had one wall of windows and three of books. Framed photos showed a boy in a cap and gown, a woman in church clothes laughing, a younger Kendra in a courtroom. It felt less like a shark's den and more like a place where serious work got done. "You brought documents?" she asked, nodding at the bag by his chair. He slid it onto her desk, pulled out the prenup and the flash drive, placed them on the polished wood. "That's our agreement," he said. "And this is a clip from our kitchen camera." Her words, not mine. Kendra opened the folder first, eyes scanning fast but not carelessly. Then she plugged in the drive, double-clicked, and let the audio play. The sound of clinking plates and low conversation filled the small speakers. Then Jade's voice came through, clear as if she were in the room. "You are replaceable. I made sure of that when I sat with lawyers and protected what I built." When the file ended, Kendra sat very still for a second, then leaned back. "Well," she said, "that is quite a sentence." Heat rose in Derek's neck. "She believes it," he said. "And I signed that paper like a fool. Everybody online says a man in my spot should be grateful for whatever she hands him. I just want to know if I really have to swallow that for the rest of my life." Kendra folded her hands. "Let me break this down in plain English," she said. "On its face, this prenup favors her. Big time. But courts do not worship paper. They look at how it was signed and whether both people knew what they were giving up." She tapped the first page. "You signed this the day before the wedding," she said. Her lawyer present. "No independent counsel listed for you. That is a red flag. If she did not give you a full picture of the company's value, that is another. Judges do not like last-minute pressure deals where one person holds all the information." She flipped to another section. "And this part here," she added, "where it talks about waiver of interest in separate property and a fixed payout. That might hold if you were a passive spouse who never lifted a finger. But you say you funded early flips, ran crews, helped design the whole acquisition model. That makes this more complicated for her." He reached into the bag again, pulled out bank statements, early invoices, printed screenshots of texts. She looked through them, marking dates with a pen. "Here's what I see," she said at last. "You were already working in real estate before her app existed. You put your savings into the first batch of houses. Your company's name shows up on her early contracts. She texted you more than once, calling you her partner and backbone. That is not nothing." He let out a slow breath he had not realized he was holding. "So I'm not crazy for thinking I deserve more than that little line in the prenup," he said. "You're not crazy," she answered. "You're late, but not too late. Now we decide how bold you want to be." She drew a simple diagram on her legal pad. A timeline of their marriage. The growth of the company, the upcoming SPAC. "This deal she's chasing," Kendra said. Tapping the far end of the line is a huge public moment. Her image and valuation are tied together now. If we file quietly on a random Tuesday, she has time to bury the story. If we file when the spotlight is at its brightest, she has to choose between fighting you and protecting the stock. Derek stared at the line where Today sat, not far from the point labeled IPO SPAC. You're talking about using her big day as a weapon, he said. Kendra gave a small, cool smile. I'm talking about leverage, she replied. She used her lawyers to make you replaceable. You have every right to use timing to make sure she pays for that sentence. We will not lie. We will not invent. We will simply tell the truth at the worst possible time for her brand. He thought of Jade's confident face on TV panels, the way she spoke about protecting her empire, the way she had looked at him like dead weight in his own kitchen. Do it, he said. File when it hurts the most. Kendra slid an engagement letter across the desk. Sign here, she said. From this minute on, you don't raise your voice to her. You don't threaten her, you don't post drama. You let me and the evidence speak for you. Quiet men with proof are very dangerous. He signed, his name flowing over the line with a steadiness he had not felt in months. When he stepped back into the heat of the afternoon, the city noise wrapped around him, but inside he was strangely calm. Jade still thought the prenup made him harmless. She had no idea he had just loaded that one. 12-second clip into a legal shotgun and pointed it, straight at the day she cared about most. For the first time, the revenge felt real, not just like anger in his chest. It had a name, a date, and a lawyer. He walked to his truck, climbed in, and pulled away from the curb, leaving a trail of dust and the old version of himself behind. The morning of the deal, the bedroom looked like a backstage set. Garment bags swung from the closet doors. A makeup case lay open on the vanity, and on the wall-mounted TV, a business channel ran Jade's face on loop with the caption, Lawson PropTech to go public today. She paced in a silk robe while a stylist pinned her hair, headset already in her ear. I don't want one question about my marriage, she said into the mic. We're talking valuation and vision, that's it. Derek stepped in with 2 mugs of coffee. She took one without looking up, gave his forearm a quick squeeze. Big day, he said. The day, she answered, eyes on her reflection. Post something cute from your page after the bell, okay? Proud of my wife, all that. They eat that up. He met her gaze in the mirror. She didn't see the difference in his eyes. Don't worry, he said. They'll see what they need to see. By 8:15, she was in a black car gliding down the driveway, flashbulbs popping at the gate. Derek watched from the upstairs window until the car vanished behind the trees, then checked his phone. A text from Kendra waited, filing stamped. Temporary order on big asset moves granted. Showtime. He exhaled, slow and steady, then went downstairs. The doorbell chimed as he rinsed his mug. On the foyer camera, a process server in a blazer handed the housekeeper a thick envelope. For Ms. Lawson, the man said. Time sensitive. The housekeeper placed it on the entry table next to a vase of white flowers. Unaware the neat stack of paper was a legal explosion with Jade's name on it. Across town, in a newsroom 3 blocks from the stock exchange, reporter Alana Rivers hovered over her keyboard. Her feature had been fact-checked and lawyer-checked. The audio clip had been cleaned up but not sweetened. She clicked publish and watched the headline slide to the top of the site. You are replaceable. The husband who helped build Jade Lawson's empire is done being quiet. Screenshots of Derek in demolished houses, invoices to her first LLC, old texts calling him her backbone, each piece stacked like lumber. In the middle of the story, a gray bar waited with a simple caption. Kitchen audio. Lawson home timestamped 2 months ago. Readers tapped play. Jade's voice poured out of their phones. You are replaceable. I made sure of that when I sat with lawyers and protected what I built. Within minutes, the line was everywhere. Clipped and reposted over her Forbes cover, over photos of Derek in work boots. Hashtags spun up on their own. Replaceable wear. Built on his back. By the time Jade's car pulled up to the exchange, the business channel that loved her was already running a split-screen live shot of her stepping onto the sidewalk. On the left, Alana's headline on the right. On the trading floor, an assistant pushed through the crowd and shoved a phone into her hand. "You should see this before you go up," he said. She glanced down, expecting a market note, then froze at the sight of Derek's picture and her own quote in 30-point font. Her thumb hit the audio before she could stop herself. Her words came back thin and brutal through the little speaker. "You are replaceable." For half a second, the floor blurred. When it snapped back, cameras were already pointed at her. The countdown to the opening bell blinking above the platform. She swallowed, fixed her smile in place, and struck the bell with the mallet like nothing was wrong. The cheer rose on cue. But the stock did not leap the way her bankers had promised. It twitched, climbed, sagged, all while commentators mentioned a messy personal story breaking this morning. Hours later, in a glass conference room away from the noise, her personal attorney slid the court papers across the table. Petition for divorce. Motion to invalidate prenuptial agreement. Request for temporary orders. "He timed this," Jade said, voice raw around the edges. "He used my own house, my own camera, and he has the internet cheering for him," the attorney cut in. "Dragging this out in public will cost you more than settling will." That afternoon, in a smaller office across town, Jade walked into a mediation room and found Derek already seated at one end of a long table. He stood when she entered, then sat again. No cameras, no board, just them and their lawyers. "You didn't have to nuke my IPO," she said. He met her eyes, calm. "You nuked our marriage in the kitchen," he replied. "I just turned the volume up." Kendra opened her folder and pushed a single-page summary to the center. "Here is what my client requires," she said. "A cash settlement tied to the value created during the marriage, paid from today's proceeds, a small equity grant vesting over time, formal written acknowledgement, in company records and any future origin, story that he co-developed, the early acquisition and rehab model, and no gag order preventing him from telling his own story or repeating words you chose in your own home." Jade scanned the numbers, anger flaring. "You're punishing me," she said to Derek. "I'm billing you," he answered. "For years you decided we're free." Her attorney leaned close, voice low. "If you fight this," the woman murmured, "we live in discovery for a year. That clip plays on every network. Every ugly email comes out. Your stock and your speaking fees will bleed. This is not a legal question anymore, Jade. It's a damage control one." The pen looked small in Jade's fingers. She signed once, twice, 3 times, each stroke turning "you are replaceable" into one of the most expensive lines she had ever spoken. When it was done, Kendra closed the folder and stood. "Congratulations," she said to Derek. "You just turned her lawyer's protection plan into your exit package." Outside, the late sun lit the street in warm gold. Derek's phone buzzed with a text from his old foreman. Money arrived. "Crew's ready. Plenty of houses need real work." Another message came from an unknown number. A podcast host asking if he'd talk about what it meant to build with someone and refused to disappear when they cashed out. He slipped the phone into his pocket and started walking, the city noise folding around him. Behind him, Jade still had her company, her title, her cameras, but she no longer had the man she'd tried to write out, and she no longer had the cheap comfort of thinking he'd leave quietly and empty-handed. She had called him replaceable. He answered by making his absence cost her millions and his name permanent in the story.